Keek on the mic, Keek on the mic. Keek on the mic, Keek on the mic. People, this the intro. Sacramento, California, born and raised. And Antelope is where I spend most of my days. Talk bad about my team, you must be a clown. This is Keek on the mic, so you know you better bear down. Bear down.
Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. Like always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you also follow me on all my social media platforms to stay connected with all Keek on the Mic news. So, Bears fans, I wanted to come on here and have a little fun on the podcast today, as I'm going to do a 3-round Chicago Bears mock draft, and this is going to be a post-trade Chicago Bears mock draft. As you guys already know, the Chicago Bears traded away the number 1 overall pick to the Carolina Panthers for a bevy of draft picks, and including wide receiver DJ Moore. So today I'm going to do kind of like a live Chicago Bears 3-round mock draft through the PFF site. We're going to make it short and sweet. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And as always, as I'm going through my picks, feel free to comment down below and let me know who you would pick in these certain picks, and how you feel about my players, what you would do if you're in Ryan Poles' position. I would love to hear from you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And like I said, we're going to select the Chicago Bears here, and then we're only going to do a 3-round Chicago Bears mock draft. And I will come back on here as the NFL draft gets a little bit closer and do a full 7-round mock draft. But for just the purpose of today's video, I'm going to do a short condensed Chicago Bears 3-round mock draft. So we're going to go ahead and enter the NFL draft. And after the trade to the Carolina Panthers, the Chicago Bears now have pick number 9, 53, 61, and 64 in the first 3 rounds of this upcoming NFL draft. So they could look to trade back from number 9 and continue to add to their draft capital, because as it stands right now, picking at number 9 and not picking again until number 53, that's quite a gap. And I know there's some Bears fans that are a little bit concerned about that, having that huge gap in between 9 and 53. But then when you look at it, you go from 53, 61 to 64. So all those picks are pretty close, but I do know personally that there's a lot of Bears fans that are a little bit concerned about going from number 9 and then all the way having to wait until 53 until we pick another player to add to the Chicago Bears roster. So we'll see what Ryan Poles does in this upcoming draft, if he does in fact planning to trade back. The only scenario that I can see, especially if some Bears fans want us to add another 2nd-round pick, he would probably obviously have to trade out of the top 10, maybe into like that 15 to 20 range, to net possibly another 2nd, another 3rd. I mean, there's even some scenarios if you trade back even further than that, you could probably net another next year's 1st. So we'll have to see. There's a lot of scenarios. But as it stands right now, I think that the Chicago Bears will probably sit pretty at number 9 overall, and select the best player available. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and start the NFL draft, and they're going through all the picks, and the Chicago Bears are now on the clock at number 9 overall. When you look at the draft board, there is some intriguing options. I know there's been a lot of Bears fans saying, you know what? The Chicago Bears may take the best cornerback available, which when I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, could that actually be a scenario? But the more and more I think about it, if we are playing the card of take the best player available, if a cornerback at that position is the best player available, I think you can go ahead and take them. So obviously you look at the draft board right now, how it falls to us in this PFF mock draft simulator. We have Devin Witherspoon, cornerback from Illinois. You still have Quentin Johnston, wide receiver from TCU. Jackson Smith-Njigba, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Peter Skoronski, Northwestern, guy that I really like. Kalijah Kancey, defensive lineman from Pittsburgh, is also an intriguing option. Lucas Van Ness, edge out of Iowa. So there's a lot of intriguing options. We can go ahead and kind of scroll down here and see what else we're working with, but I like how the draft board's fallen to us. So we know our needs are wide receiver, offensive lineman, defensive line, but maybe not so much wide receiver, but we want to focus on the trenches. So when you guys look at this draft board as it stands right now, who intrigues you guys the most? I know a lot of people in the comments will probably say, hey, Keek, go ahead and take cornerback Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois, which if you get a guy like Devin Witherspoon, that would definitely complete your secondary. You know, there's a lot of good pieces to this Chicago Bears secondary. We're young, physical, fast, and I think adding one more cornerback and a guy like Devin Witherspoon would definitely complete that room. But for me personally, I think I want to build the trenches. That's what I want to focus on the most. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the offensive tackle room. So as I expected, especially in this PFF mock draft simulator, Peter Skoronski still on the board and Paris Johnson Jr. is still on the board. I know I mentioned in yesterday's video that I felt like Peter Skoronski was the better overall prospect than Paris Johnson Jr. But the more and more I think about it, I think I'm starting to lean more towards Paris Johnson Jr. He's big at 6'6", 315 pounds. He's athletic. He has experience at both left and right tackle. And the other thing I really like about Paris Johnson Jr. is that he has blocked for Justin Fields before. They already have that connection, which I really like. I could see us drafting Paris Johnson Jr., putting him in that right tackle, and he can be our right tackle for the future. Obviously, we already have Braxton Jones at left tackle. So Paris Johnson Jr. here at number 9 overall, I think is the safest bet. And I know firsthand I came on and said Peter Skoronski to me was a better prospect. And personally, I still feel that way. I feel like you couldn't go wrong with either two of these offensive tackles, either Skoronski or Paris Johnson Jr. But for the purpose of this video, my heart and my gut is saying to select Paris Johnson Jr., offensive tackle out of Ohio State, and I truly feel like the Bears would not regret this pick. So we're going to take Paris Johnson Jr. to protect Justin Fields. So once again, I didn't trade back, Bears fans. So that means we have a long gap from number 9 overall to number 53 overall in the second round. Obviously, by trading down with the Carolina Panthers, we now have 2 second-round picks. So now we look at the draft board, and it's still falling how I expected to, right? And we can even look at the trade. Some Bears fans may consider trading down here, but I really don't see any reasonable options. If you trade down the second round, you're probably looking at netting maybe an extra third, maybe an extra fourth. But I'm not really interested in trading back here. I'm just trying to take the best 4 players that I can, the best play available, to try to make our football team better. Obviously, we're not interested in a quarterback. The edge out of Kansas State, if he is actually there in the NFL draft, I think I would run to the podium and get a guy like that. This is an effective pass rusher that will make our defensive line a whole lot better. We definitely desperately need defensive linemen, especially edge rushers. Our defensive line, I'm going to say it again, Bears fan, was absolutely putrid. So the guy from Kansas State would be an interesting option. Daniel Dell, wide receiver out of Houston, is a guy that's shooting up the draft board, so that would be intriguing. Obviously, Luke Welper, if you want to continue building the offensive line, we still do need a center, unless you're fine with a guy like Cody Whitehair or Lucas Patrick. And even if they do move Cody Whitehair to center, we still need to draft a young center to build up and make sure we can have a center of the future, because none of those options are long-term options when you're talking about Cody Whitehair and Lucas Patrick. And then obviously, we still have Garrett Williams on the board, cornerback out of Syracuse. A guy that I really like that I want to bring up in this video is right here, a guy named Andre Carter II on the edge out of Army. He is a freakish athlete, good size, all that good stuff. But I'm going to go ahead, and if it felt like this, I'm going to go ahead and take edge out of Kansas State. I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I'm just going to say the edge out of Kansas State here. I feel like it is a no-brainer. We can go ahead and look at his college stats, right? So just looking at this season, in 14 games this season, he had 8 sacks, 9 quarterback hits, 29 hurries. And even looking at the season in 2021, he had 13 sacks, 5 quarterback hits, and 25 hurries. So he's a consistent player for Kansas State. And I feel like he would do the same for the Chicago Bears defensive line. Like I mentioned, the Chicago Bears need to build the trenches. I know that for me personally, if he wasn't on the board, I think I probably would have taken Luke Welper, the center out of Ohio State, because I'm really trying to focus on building the trenches. And at this point, the edge out of Kansas State is the best player available. So with the 53rd overall pick, we're going to take an edge rusher, Bears fans. So like I said, now we are going to the second pick in the second round, the one that we earned from the trade back with the Carolina Panthers. And we still have a lot of holes to fill, right? So obviously I can definitely look. The first person that comes to mind when I'm looking at this draft board is Joe Tippmann, the center out of Wisconsin. That's definitely intriguing for me. I think it would be good value, especially late in the second round. Andre Carter II would still be an outstanding option. The edge out of Army. Garrett Williams, the cornerback out of Syracuse, would be a great option if you want to round out that cornerback room. Nathaniel Dell, once again, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, a guy that's shooting up the draft board. boards would be an amazing option as well. But like I said, I really want to build the trenches. I told you that I desperately wanted to take a center in this NFL draft, and I hope the Chicago Bears feel the same way. So I'm going to go ahead and take Joe Tippmann, center out of Wisconsin. And for me, there's a couple of centers that I'm eyeing in this NFL draft. Obviously, John Michael Schmitz out of Minnesota is a guy that I really like. Luke Welper from Ohio State, a guy that I passed to select the edge out of Kansas State, I really like. And of course, I also really like Joe Tippmann as well, center out of Wisconsin. We just need to draft a center. We need to build the trenches. This is a guy that wouldn't have to come in and start right away unless he comes in and competes. Who knows? But this is a guy that can definitely fill out our offensive line, and I want the Chicago Bears to build the trenches. So I'm going to go ahead and select center out of Wisconsin and Joe Tippmann. So we're building the trenches here, Bears fans. So now our final pick in the Chicago Bears 3-round mock draft comes in the very first pick in the 3rd round. When you look at the draft board, we have Tanner McGee. We don't need a quarterback. We're pretty good there in Justin Fields. And PJ Walker, right? So we don't need a quarterback, obviously. Then you look at the Daniel Dell, wide receiver from Houston. He's still there. That's still an intriguing option. We can take Garrett Williams, cornerback out of Syracuse. Andre Carter, edge, is still there. So personally, when I look at this draft board and how it fell to me in this PFF mock draft simulator, the names that I'm really intrigued at right now is Nathaniel Dell, wide receiver at Houston, Garrett Williams out of Syracuse, and Andre Carter, the second, the edge out of Army. So if I had to choose from these 3 guys, who would you guys select in this position? If you guys were in my shoes right now, let me know down below in the comment section before I make this selection, who would you guys pick here? So this is a difficult position. Obviously, after trading for DJ Moore, I don't feel like it's necessary to take a wide receiver here. I know there's a lot of Bears fans that will still take Jackson Smith-Njigba at number 9 overall, which I would definitely not be mad at you. I absolutely love Jackson Smith-Njigba, and I would love him on the Chicago Bears, so I wouldn't be mad at that selection. But in this scenario right here, I think the Chicago Bears would be okay skipping on the wide receiver, knowing that now you have DJ Moore, you have Darnell Mooney, you have Chase Claypool, you have tight end Cole Kmet. You can decide to wait maybe in the 4th or 5th rounds to get your receiver. So that's okay too. So now I'm going to take Nathaniel Dell out of it. So I'm not going to select the wide receiver out of Houston. So that leaves me with either Garrett Williams or Andre Carter II. And I told you that I really like Andre Carter's upside. When I watch the tape, he's just freakish, right? He's freakish size, freakish athlete. This is a guy that has kind of shot up draft boards. I think it would be a steal earlier in the 3rd round. We can go ahead and look at some of his stats in 2022. Only had 4 sacks, 2 hits, 17 hurries, and 10 games played. But in 2021, he had 15 sacks, 9 quarterback hits, and 35 quarterback hurries. So you definitely see the production is there. Definitely took a slight dip, but that doesn't take away from the type of player that he could be. A lot of upside there. I think he can come in and be a solid player for the Chicago Bears. Once again, looking at his size, he's 6'6", 256 pounds. He's only 22 years old. And just like it says, he has a good pass rushing field. That's where he wins. And it says here that Carter moves like an athlete, understands how to set up offensive tackles when rushing the passer. His role was usually in a 3-4 outside linebacker role, so that can be a slight issue there. So this is a guy that may need to adjust into a 4-3 scheme, but I feel like it would be a good adjustment here in Chicago. I know that we need to build the trenches. We need to add defensive linemen. So I'm going to go ahead and take Andre Carter II, edge out of Army, to once again add to the trenches and once again add to this very putrid Chicago Bears defensive line. So there you have it, Bears fans. That is my Chicago Bears 3-round mock draft post-trade, once we trade the number 1 overall pick to the Carolina Panthers. And now they're going to go ahead and grade my draft. And obviously the haul that we got, I feel like I got the 4 best players available. In my personal opinion, we took round 1, pick number 9, Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State to protect Justin Fields. And round 2, we took the edge out of Kansas State. And Joe Tippmann, center out of Wisconsin. And then in round 3, we took Andre Carter II, the edge out of Army. And my overall draft grade, what PFF gave me, was an A grade, and I couldn't agree more. Obviously I focused on the trenches here. I showed the offensive line some love. I showed the defensive line some love. I think that's what needs to happen, and that's how you build a football team. And I know a lot of people will say, we should really focus. If Jackson Smith-Njigba is the best player available at number 9, take him. And I totally agree. You take best player available, right? But for the purpose of this video and how I feel, I really wanted to focus on building the trenches. So Bears fans, PFF gave me an A grade for my haul and my Chicago Bears 3-round mock draft here on the PFF mock draft simulator. What grade do you guys give me? Let me know down below in the comment section. Like I said, we are getting ever closer to the 2023 NFL draft, and I'm super excited to see what Ryan Poles does to continue to make this Chicago Bears roster better. We have a whole lot of holes to fill, but I have no doubt in my mind that Ryan Poles will continue to add to the roster and bring in some quality guys through the NFL draft. So before I let you guys go, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms. And make sure you share this episode of Kick on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. But other than that, back for all new Bears podcast right here on Kick on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic.